Welcome to the Vibrantly You podcast. We're your hosts, Megan Martineau
and Caitlin Cipriano. In this podcast, we talk about fitness and nutrition on your motherhood journey. Whether you are trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, or beyond, you are welcome here.
Nothing is off limits, and our goal is to support you in this important season of life so that you can feel vibrantly you. As a reminder, this information is not medical advice. Please see the show notes for more details. Welcome back to the Vibrantly You podcast. Today we are diving into a topic we get asked about all the time, which is nutrition for breastfeeding. So today we want to talk about both what the evidence-based guidance is for breastfeeding and nutrition, but also our personal experiences because we have both breastfed twice through 2 postpartum experiences and just chat about things that have helped us along the way as well. So let's dive into this episode. So for me, I'll just share a little bit about my 2 breastfeeding experiences. So with my first, I exclusively pumped, which is still breastfeeding. I know there's like some discourse around that on the internet. Still breastfeeding. Um,
Unbelievable.
I know. And and so with my second, I was more nursing. I still pumped a little bit, but I was more exclusively nursing. But I was still like making sure I was eating whenever I was hungry, really trying to keep up with hydration. I definitely had a lot of breastfeeding cravings, middle of the night cravings. But we're really just going to dive into all of these things today. So really talking about like what your body needs when you are lactating and breastfeeding just to maintain your milk supply, what foods can help, and some like warning signs and things to watch out for.
Yeah, I totally relate to like the hunger levels and the thirst. I feel like I had pretty smooth breastfeeding journeys with both of my kids, which I'm very blessed for. Outside of, some clogs and a bout of mastitis, which I know you've experienced too. I
Oh
think
yeah.
hopefully we'll have a episode with IBCLC in regard to that topic. Um, but I think it's hard to, prepare for what you can expect over the course. But definitely, we'll talk about some like tips today that can be really helpful, especially when you are sleep deprived, you're juggling a new baby, and you're just trying to take care of yourself. So, let's dive in here and let's talk about. I always get this question in terms of your body's like energy demands and what the like calories look like. This is a really common question for people. And so the evidence says that most women need somewhere between like 300 to 500 calories more per day than what your baseline intake needs. But it's really not just about like the calories, but like where those calories are coming from that makes the most impact.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, right? Because like the food that we are eating is directly impacting the breast milk and the nutrient quality, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you're not like eating enough, and especially like enough nutrient dense foods, then some of those like nutrients and stuff are going to get pulled from you, first to help, prioritize the baby, much like it does during pregnancy. But that can also really like impact you, right? Especially in these like early postpartum time frames where there is still like tissue repair and things going on that directly impact how you feel and how you recover from your birth. So some of the key nutrients that we want to talk about during breastfeeding are protein. So this is going to help with both your milk production as alongside that tissue repair postpartum. Healthy fats are really important for the baby's brain development. And then also calcium, iodine, B vitamins, choline, and DHA for those micronutrients. So, sometimes when we're having those, middle of night cravings or, snacks in between nursing sessions, those are some like things that you want to consider as you're, planning some little things to have on hand.
Yeah, and I think that was a great point that you brought up that like if you're not eating enough or like eating, the protein, the health, the things that you mentioned, like those things are still going to end up in your breast milk for your baby, right? And it like pulls those nutrients away from you at a time where
Yeah.
you like desperately like need those things to heal. So it's like so important to make sure, first and foremost that you're eating enough, which is why we have those extra calorie recommendations.
Yeah. And so the first thing I like to think about for meals that are like easy to prep, you're still going to stay satisfied and things are going to be more balanced is like, okay, right? You're probably going to be bringing these while your baby nurses. Maybe they're taking a contact nap on you. I cannot count the amount of times I got stuck with a baby on me, um, which is fine. But I'm always like, okay, we're about to go nurse. Like, okay, water bottle, check. Like, snack or meal I can eat with one hand, one hand. Like, check. So make sure that you go into your nursing session prepped, especially if you think that you might have any type of chance that you're getting stuck there. Smoothies are great for this. Again, like very simple from a preparation standpoint, but we can pack a lot of those nutrients that we're looking for in there. So you can utilize a protein powder. You can add nut butter or some seeds and fruit, and you can make a really nice balanced option that's still going to be quick for you and easy to digest. Um, I always love doing oats, which I know you still need like your hand free, but again, it's really like comforting, supportive on digestion during especially early postpartum stages. But you can like add all the things that you want to it. You can do berries and nut butters. You can top it with yogurt and just make a really nice, balanced meal with things. Um, Wraps or sandwiches are also like super great, easy choice. Like one hand, add your protein of choice and your veggies, and then you can kind of like go from there. I also for like snacks really loved like those energy bites, which I know I mentioned like all the time, but again, kind of like how you have regular oats, you can just like pack those nutrient dense options inside of it and it's quick, easy bite. Um, and then let's see, what other things did you like to keep on hand? What were go-tos for you?
Yeah, I mean, anything that was just really easy to throw together. I definitely would rely on some prepackaged things sometimes, like protein bars and things like that. I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, you are preparing these things yourself. But like, if someone is just like, say they have, other kids at home, they are just like crazy running around busy. What are some maybe like prepackaged options that are still gonna like offer a decent like nutrient profile, even though it's not, like the healthiest
Sure.
option?
One of my other ones, you just had me think of like cheese sticks. Like we always have those on
Oh, yeah.
hand. And so like that was a really quick go-to for me. And I would try like if I could, I'd try to, like maybe have some like fruit or some like nuts with it too, just to kind of like complete and round it out. But that was always something that I felt like I could quickly grab and that we always had on hand. Some people too like those chomps, like the um, sticks.
Yeah.
Um, they're not my personal preference, but I know a lot of people like those, and those are a quick, easy option that have some protein in them as well. Um, you know, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's, you're trying to do the best you can again during a time that is notoriously very challenging. And so, don't beat yourself up if you can't snag whole foods for every single meal, but trying to like again aim for protein, healthy fats, and fiber, like we talk about a lot on the podcast, is definitely going to, like, again, help you feel more satisfied. You're going to be able to better meet, like, not only like your demands, but your baby's demands without it pulling from your nutrient stores if you're getting it in the food.
Yeah. And I feel like like at the end of the day, like eating something is always going to be better than eating nothing. Especially
Yes.
because like as moms, we just always tend to put our like nutrition on the back burner. You know, you're trying to get your babies fed or like get your older kids fed and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't eaten yet." And so when you are breastfeeding, it's like just eat something. Just like
Mhm.
get something in your mouth and in your belly, and keeping those calories up, right, to like help with your production too. So I know one thing that, like, and I have clients that, worry about this quite often, my postpartum clients, but are when babies tend to have like a lot of reflux or upset stomach, and like people are like, oh my gosh, is it something that I'm eating? Like, do you see like, or are there common foods or food groups that do tend to upset a lot of babies' stomachs when breastfeeding?
Yeah, so the most common things that get reported tend to be dairy, soy, caffeine, but really like tends to be in like larger amounts. I can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Cruciferous babies for some, cruciferous veggies for babies. Um, that can sometimes be sensitive for them. Not cruciferous babies. You guys knew what I meant.
It's Friday when we're
It's
recording
Friday.
this. It's fine.
Uh, um, and then sometimes spicy foods too. But I just want to like reiterate that, not every baby is going to like have specific foods that upset them. And so it's really helpful to just like pay attention to patterns, right? If you're noticing that your baby is really like gassy or like what some of my labels like colicky, and you're noticing like that, oh, it's happening every time after I have coffee, then you can kind of be like, I need to be more conscientious around the timing of my coffee. And I'm using this as an example because this happened for me with my son. And I had just had, it didn't mean that I couldn't have coffee. I just had to be more aware of when I was timing my caffeine. And so I would oftentimes in the morning, I would nurse him and then have my cup of coffee. And then I would have enough time in between to when I was going to nurse him again, where that didn't seem to impact him at all. But again, like it didn't matter with my daughter, that didn't bother her. So just keeping like a simple, like little food and symptom journal if you are noticing that your baby is having reflux or gas or other digestive system symptoms, can really identify patterns before you just like go out and decide, oh my goodness, I need to cut out dairy.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to try to like keep a journal and try to notice changes because I do think sometimes moms are so quick to be like, I have to cut out dairy. I have to do this. And then they're just feeling so stressed and like, yeah, like maybe just jot things down, give it a little bit of time and see if you are consistently noticing those things. One thing I did want to mention too, because since I was an exclusive pumper with my first, like I remember seeing this in like exclusive pumping areas, and even like it was a question for myself, like, okay, what do I do about the caffeine thing, specifically, or any of these like triggers because like most of the time you're not pumping and then immediately feeding the baby when you are an exclusive pumper. And so one thing that I found to be helpful was like labeling like morning milk or even just like writing on there like I pumped this after I drank coffee. So then I knew like don't give him that bottle before bed at nighttime because there's probably a little bit of caffeine in there. So even just like adding those little labels can be helpful when you are pumping or doing like the pitcher method where you're like putting all the milk together in a pitcher in the fridge and like mixing it all together because then if you do have like a pump session where there's more caffeine, it kind of like dilutes, I guess. So if we have any exclusive pumpers out there, that can be a helpful thing if you're worried about the caffeine. So we can't forget about hydration. You need to hydrate.
Yeah, I think, the nutrition is obviously important, but the hydration here is really key during this time period where you're breastfeeding. Breast milk is about like 87% water, I believe. So just like having enough fluid is really key. So I tell my clients to set up hydration stations in their house. So the high traffic areas, you have a water bottle like in that station. So wherever you tend to nurse your baby and then anywhere else that you might be hanging out, get a water bottle like put there. And when you are like done with your nursing session, like go fill it up and put it back because the worst thing is going to sit down and you start nursing and then you realize that the water bottle is in fact empty and there's no one home to help you fill it up.
Yeah, like water bottles, cups everywhere. Like my house looked ridiculous. It was just like cups, empty cups, water bottles all over the place. But like the breastfeeding thirst is unreal.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Totally.
So one last thing I know we wanted to touch on in this episode is also just talking about the mental load. Honestly, just the mental load of like nutrition in this early postpartum period, especially when you are establishing that milk supply. But then on top of that, so like you might have stress from just like breastfeeding in general, but then being like, oh my gosh, I have to like eat all these things too, right? Like it can just feel like a lot. Um, so like what advice would you give to people who are kind of just
Yeah.
feeling that like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I have to keep track of and maybe it's feeling overwhelming?
I think that's really, really like relatable to feel overwhelmed during this time period, right? And you're giving so much of your energy, your body to like meet your baby's demand. And so it's really not easy to find that time for yourself. But, you know, like you said, trying to make sure that you've got some options on hand that are like quick and simple that do feel doable for you. And everyone's level of what feels doable is going to be a little bit different, but just trying to, set yourself up for success so that you have those easy, quick options. And don't be afraid to ask for help with this. Like this isn't something that you need to take on all by yourself too, on top of everything. Ask your partner. Um, I think early on too, like meal trains are super helpful. So I want to mention that. Like if you have, friends or other, aspects of community in your village where they can bring you some meals, like that is huge and so helpful in the for like early days. Um, and I'll probably have an episode too on like cooking during pregnancy and like prepping things, but that is also super helpful to just like have simple meals and batch prep while you're pregnant that you can use in those first couple months postpartum. Just those small like steps like that can make a huge difference, I think, in that mental load.
Yeah, and we do have other episodes that you can check out. So I'll drop all of these in the show notes, but episode 4 is that meal prepping for postpartum recovery. We have episode 13, which is caffeine during pregnancy and breastfeeding. And we do have a whole episode on breastfeeding and hydration. If you want to dive deeper into that, that is episode 23. So I'll link all of those in the show notes. But as we wrap up this episode, Caitlin, what are your top 5 takeaways for breastfeeding nutrition?
Yeah, so we'll do this like little rapid fire here. So like we talked about, like make sure you're eating enough, really like honor those hunger cues. This is a time where you do need to be like really nourishing yourself. It is demanding as you are breastfeeding and also healing. Prioritize those protein, healthy fats, and fiber. So trying to get some like well-roundedness in those nutrient-dense foods the best that you can. Stay hydrated, like we just talked about. And then, try to, if you are noticing symptoms in your baby for sensitivities, try to like do a little journal and then you can, seek out help, guidance, either with your provider or your local lactation consultant. And then, like, take time for you. Like, again, this is a lot mentally. So make sure that you're finding some time to like find little pockets of joy and self-care, because that matters just as much as the other stuff too.
Yeah, I love that, especially the last one. Take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of baby. So that one is so important. So these are all awesome tips, Caitlin. I hope that if you're listening to this episode, this helped you feel just a little more confident about fueling your body during this busy, often stressful time. And just remember too that like every baby's different, every mom's different. This journey is not going to look the same for everybody. So even like you mentioned, like seek out help if you just feel like you're drowning and you don't know which way is up. There's no shame in asking for help. And so if you have any questions for Caitlin and you want to like dive into any of these topics further, feel free to reach out to her on Instagram at Wholesome Huntress Nutrition, or let us know if you want a whole nother episode on anything specific we talked about today. Make sure you subscribe, and we will see you next week.